he uri tēnei no te Aotearoa ki whakarongotai me Ngāti tō rangatira me Ngāti Raukawa ki te tonga. Ko John Barrett tōku pāpā, ko Susan Barrett tōku māma, ko Pera Barrett tōku ingoa. And yeah, thank you, bro, for that huge, sounds like a very exaggerated introduction. But yeah, I'm stoked to be here and wanted to mihi to all of you guys for being here too, to take part in this wānanga and this kōrero, to listen and take part, because that's what will be happening. And nei rā te mihi ki ngā kai whakahaere o tēnei, tēnei wānanga, tēnei festival, this festival. Massive thank you to everyone behind the scenes, Guy and your crew and the rest of the festival crew for putting this on. O tira e ngā homies, e hariko ana tōku ngākau ki te noho tahi ki o koutou taha. Massive, nōku te whiwhi, massive privilege to sit here with you guys and have this kōrero. Ko au te teina, and I'm excited to just listen to this kōrero. I'm the moderator, which is like, the medium, moderate is medium, so that's kind of, I'm the average dude here to just pass the mic around and listen to the kōrero. And I'm excited, and that's a privilege to do. I did want to, I'll kick us off with a karakia just to kind of open up the space for this wānanga. Then we will go through just some introductions with everybody introducing ourselves. Not only because I can't do nearly as good a job as Guy of introducing our rangatira here, but because it's better that you hear from them some of the awesome mahi they do, sort of who they are, what they've been doing, and then we'll kick into some kind of specific bits of kōrero about digital equity. We'll have Slido up as well, so you guys can ask questions throughout the wānanga, and then we'll try our best to get through those towards the end of the panel as well. I might actually ask, Guy, can we get some, oh no, they're out here. I'll just do, this is definitely a big part of my job, important part of my job. But actually, no, I'll do a karakia first, and then I'll put these here. I'm very organised, as you can see. So māku te karakia e tuku. Tēnei te aro o rangi nui e tu ake nei, tēnei te aro o papatu ānuku e takato nei, tēnei te aro o rangi rāwa ko pape e takato nei, kia rarau te tapu wai o tāne ki raro, tēnei te pō nau mai te ao, karangatia te ao e piri, karangatia ko tāne e piri, e tata, tūturu whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e tai ki e, kia ora. Cheers bro, thank you. Because I've only been talking for like 35 seconds and I already feel thirsty. So like I said, I'm Pera. I grew up in Otaki, live down here now. I've lived down here for ages. Kia ora Māori land whānau. We're a few different pōtai. One of them isn't anymore audio engineering, so I can't fix whatever was going on with my mic. But I spend a couple of days a week working as a digital equity lead at Te Whatu Ora, and that means helping them in the digital and data space to do better at applying te tiriti o waitangi in their mahi, so figuring out how to do that in those specific projects, and whether it's an app thing, whether it's a clinical thing, whatever, and also helping them do better at just designing for equity. So I spend a couple of days a week doing that. What do you want? This is an awkward, eh? No, sweet. I love it. I think it should be sweet anyway, bro. Cool, kia ora. Then I spend, and so that's choice. That's really interesting to see what equity looks like in that crown space and in government. And I spend a couple of days a week working with rangatahi to help them remember their potential in leadership. So we do that through this kaupapa called Shoebox Christmas, where we, like Guy said, kind of work with tamariki in the community to make sure they know that the community has their back through these Christmas gifts. And then I spend a day a week out at Te Wānanga Ōraukawa back home in Otaki working on a kaupapa called Whitihiko ki te ao, where we're trying to build pathways for us in Otaki into tech careers and education. and we've got some whare planned that we're building for that kaupapa at the moment. So that's kind of what I do. Obviously, my most important job, though, is my, like how I did this, my tamariki, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, kahu o te rangi and huhana, my beautiful little kids, and my wife Danielle. So that's my first job. Those are my other jobs. I didn't do it that way around because I mucked up. But yeah, that's me. Kia ora whānau. All you'll hear from me probably for the rest of the kōrero will be asking pātai and reminding you guys to ask pātai too. I might pass the mic over to the bro now. Awesome. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Jesse Armstrong toko ingoa, huri tēnei no Ngāti Hine, me Waikato, ko au te kaihautu a Vaka. Kia ora everybody, my name is Jesse Armstrong, I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Vaka. I'm very, very excited to be here, especially here in Pōneke, because my co-founder and I used to have a business down here in Wellington. We had our office on Cuba Street, and Wellington is always our home away from home. So to give you a bit of background on our mahi, some of you have probably met us before and are thinking about the mahi we used to do. So I figured I'd kind of explain a little bit of what we used to do and then show you how we kind of used that to get into what we're doing now. So prior to COVID, my co-founder and I moved our team down to Wellington because we were part of the Mahuki Accelerator program just across the road at Te Papa. And long story short, over about 4 or 5 years, we developed interactive storytelling technology. And one of the kind of flagship products that a lot of people would kind of known us for, we had developed these interactive storytelling portraits. So when you approached them, they looked like real paintings, but then using facial detection and a few other things, the character would come to life in kōrero. Basically we started growing that Pākahi, and then COVID came along, and most of our customer base was in tourism. So as you can imagine, in about 2-3 weeks when that kind of first major lockdown hit, and everyone started realizing COVID was going to be a long-term thing, we pretty much lost 95% of our business in a few weeks. So it was a pretty stressful time, to be honest. But we took strength in remembering the power of remembering our tupuna, and the fact that, you know, when they built these incredible waka, they too faced storms, and they would have storms that would probably just come out of nowhere, and they had to learn how to navigate around those and use the knowledge that they had and the environment around them to navigate those tricky situations. So remembering that, we decided to pivot our company and decided to get into education. So what we do now, we are an education company. We teach people how to make money from 3D printing. So we're bridging the gap between STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts and maths, and entrepreneurship. We absolutely love the mahi that we're doing now, actually a lot more than what we were doing prior to COVID. And we've worked with some incredible organizations to teach rangatahi and educators all over Aotearoa how to tap into this powerful technology, but not to just do it for technology's sake, but to actually use it to solve real-world problems, in particular the economic problems that many of our people face. And we've also found a way to incorporate elements of hauora in with the technology education that we provide. Reconnecting back with our own cultures, teaching them how to make designs more meaningful. Because I know a lot of people I've spoken to see 3D printing and they're like, oh yeah, that's just like, people just make little toys and stuff with that, eh? And yes, while they do, you can make some kind of quirky things. If you really put meaning behind the intention with your designs, you can make some incredibly powerful designs. For example, the taonga that I'm wearing is my own taonga design that is fully 3D printed. And we teach, one of our most popular workshops is teaching people how to design their own taonga using 3D printing. And not just slapping some Māori stuff together so it looks cool, but actually thinking about a narrative that is relevant to their lives, looking at the meanings behind some of these patterns and shapes that we have in Te Ao Māori, and then merging those together so when they wear their taonga, it's meaningful to them. We're also experimenting with other types of use cases with 3D printing, one of which I wanted to quickly kind of show and demonstrate here. So this is what we're calling an ocarina puoro. It is not a traditional taonga puoro, but has a very similar sound to various taonga puoro, and we've kind of seen this as a gateway for rangatahi and people to start to gain more interest in actually immersing themselves in that kind of world of taonga poro. So I'll play this for you real quick, and then I'll stop talking and hand the time over to my co-panelists. Awesome.
You're going next. You're going next. Last.
One more, wait.
No, you're going there. I have to go last.
We're going order.
No, I have to go last, remember?
Yeah. We'll go last.
We already talked about this, yeah.
Whatalo whatu, taupa ia, ma tau... Oh, yes! Haven't even started. Kalo whai. Whatalo whatu, taupa ia, ma tau mamalu le nei tai au. Ia momo lava o tisi le whaftai, ma le vi inga le tua. A walonga ang lelei, manong wha maongi tātou tangata. Tā alofa lava, malo ni, nisa pulivinaka, and warm Pacific greetings to you all. My full name is Nuali'i Eteroa Tusi Pepa Lafaele. Yeah! Yes! Bliss. Well, if you haven't guessed, well, you should have guessed faster. I hail from the beautiful islands of Samoa. I come from the villages of Whangapua in Sawhutu Lawhai, Lumuenga Tuwai, and Te Whangamanu in Lefanga. But even though I hail from the beautiful islands of Samoa, I am born and bred in the place of champions. That's right, Cannons Creek, Porirua! 5024 all day, every day, it's the motto in the valley, yes. But I'm not there all the time. But I do have to give it up for my partner, Timothy. So give it up for 274 in the house, yeah. Home of the brave, yes. And also to Ngati Hine, Puke Puke Rau, Ngati Hine, that's the one. Bliss. So who am I and what do I do? Oh my gosh, good question. You didn't even ask the Slido, but all good. They call me, I am multifaceted. I am a diamond. Shine me on any edges, I'll still shine, you know? I'm a diamond. But I am a software engineer, developer evangelist, and co-founder of DigiTautua, and also co-founder and director of Fale. So Fale, we're amazing org, yes, but we really do work to create pathways for our Pasifika people in tech, but we also look after our people in digital equity. You'll find out more in this talanoa, but I'm very excited for today's talanoa. Tie your shoelaces, go toilet after, then come back and hold it, because you are definitely in a riot. Whaftai te lava. Let's get into it. Yeah!
Oh, hell, I'm not going after that. I was doing these ones, because I was like, oh, the energy. I wanted to make way for the awesomeness. Oh, kia ora, sis. It's always choice hanging out with you. Oh, bring it. I think, how many of you were in the first session, just so I could know? See, then you know me, we goods, we done skis. So, born in Waihi, raised in a little town called Tokoroa, the 886 hot. And then I spent my teenage years in South Auckland. That's why I got time for my crew that's come here from South Auckland. So kia ora, you fellas got time for that. From a digital equity standpoint, you've heard about my list of the stuff that I get involved with in the first session. But from a digital equity standpoint, I got involved pretty hardcore right at the beginning of some of the stuff that was going down, especially those original conversations with Internet New Zealand, the stuff with the conversations that Vic, Janelle, Riki Waka, all those fellas were having, and that came to the formulation of DECA, the Digital Equity Coalition Aotearoa. And so out of that, we came to be, which is helping to develop the ecosystem or the digital equity ecosystem in Waitaha, in Canterbury. WRD, that's the Waitaha Regional Digital Equity Space. So there is lots and lots of projects that I can sit here and talk to you about because everything is connected. But predominantly, the largest role that I have in this space is to aid in strategic coordination so that everybody who's doing that mahi over there, and the duplication of mahi, everyone knows about the mahi, because we find, especially in this space a lot, that everyone's fighting for the same pūtea. And if we know about it, we can stop this duplication, or we can enhance it and we can go for co-funding opportunities together, and then we'd be able to better assess where those priorities are. But I'll leave that for longer into the conversation, and I'll make sure that I don't take the microwave time from the sis, because it is a show and it's amazing. It's amazing. We don't talk all that, so kia ora.
Kia ora.
There's a reason that I'm meant to go last, which you'll see in a minute, but I am seriously regretting going after Eteroa now, so. Ke te noha aho ke roto I te taumarumaru o te pane o mata oho. I tipu mai aha I ngā tahataha o te moana o manukanuka o Aotearoa. No marehe aho, ko Tamaki Makoro te rohe, ke te piriti o mangere aho e noho ana, ko Vivian Chandra tōku ingoa. He po aku hangarau aho I ke wehi ngā hangarau. So I work at OMG Tech, and I love my job. I know it's really weird to say that, but I do. Every day I mostly go into schools and I teach teachers how to teach with digital technologies. Every time I say that, I'm like, I've said that word teach too many times in that sentence. That's fine. And the reason that we do that is from a digital equity standpoint. So originally, our co-founders, Vaughan and Zoe, Vaughan Ferguson, which is our organisation's actually called the Pam Ferguson Charitable Trust. Vaughan's mum, Pam, was a paraplegic, single mum of 4, and she decided to buy him a computer in the early 80s, when I was a baby. And, fast forward, a lot of years. And last year he sold his tech company for $500 million. So it can happen here in Aotearoa, and it has happened. But what we want, and Vaughan says this first out of anyone, what we want is less people that look like him, because he's a middle-aged white guy, and hopefully more people that look like me, or more like Eteroa, all of us. And so that's why I do what I do. I'm just going to tell a very, very quick personal story. One of the very first times I went to a networking event, a tech event, as a tech person, this young woman came up to me. And she would have been all of 20, I think, maybe younger. And she was like, "You're Vivian." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I just spoke on the thing first." Then she's like, no, you don't remember. You were at the school when I was at school. And I had run a little coding club there, and I obviously completely forgotten about it. She's like, "I work in tech now." And I was just like, oh. And and it's why I do what I do. It's this cool, the kōrero and the stories from individuals. Yeah. All right, so now let's kick this off. And I'm going to just, check on my phone, because I obviously can't remember all of this off by heart. So we're just going to do an audience participation bit, because I know you all hate just sitting there and listening. So I want you to hands up if you have access to the internet where you live. Look around, people. Pretty much everyone here. All right, put your hands down. Hands up if you have at least one device that isn't a phone to access the internet. Yeah? Now, put your hands down. If you live with someone else, hands up if you have one device each. Yeah? Few less, yeah? All right, hands down. Hands up if you know how to use the internet to do essential things, like banking, accessing medical services, and government forms. Yeah, pretty much everyone in the room again. Hands up if you can fully access all of these essential sites in your first language. Few less. And hands up if the people you see in the sites and the media you visit, or the people you see leading our tech companies, look like you. And last one, hands up if you know how to keep yourself safe online. This can include, but is not limited to, not knowing what to do if private stuff about you is shared or keeping your password safe. Interesting, huh? So I'm going to throw a few stats at you, and then we'll just open it up back to Pera for a few of the questions. But so some things to think about. According to the New Zealand Electoral Survey, 69% of those living in social housing have access to the internet. So just under three quarters, and versus 91% in New Zealand in general. And 17% of people with disabilities have no internet access at all. 2022, of over 1,000 people, Internet New Zealand did a survey, 76% use and change passwords regularly. And only 56%, just over half, keep their software outdated, and only 27% use the password manager. If you don't know what a password manager is, I wrote a blog about it, humble brag, but it's cool. Yeah, so I will hand it back over to you, Pera.
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, Viv. We might just ask now Pātai for you guys in the audience, what do you think some of the, and Guy, can I run this microphone out? Will that, oh yeah, truce. I mean, hopefully someone wants to answer the question. What might some of the impacts of those inequities that Viv talked about look like? What do you think digital inequity might mean for the people at the end of that inequity? Got a couple of hands down there.
Keep your hands up so I can see. I'm running. This is good training. It's the lack of education, and then you get those generations or those people from our communities being left behind, and then the inequity just gets worse and worse. Future generations are then suffering because their leaders lost that chance, and that's not fair.
Kia ora.
Similar thing as he said, especially within the disabled space, if you're not able to access those materials, and then you're not able to advocate for yourself or access the resources that you should be entitled to, and the lack of education around that can be really harmful for minority communities.
Kia ora. Oh, just down about 3 or 2 rows in front.
It's really hard to see in the dark.
So with those statistics, the people that often lack access to technology and equality in terms of technology and stuff, those people are already looked at in a different view by society, and it's like this constant spiral for minorities, disabled people, people of colour, where they're already ostracised by technology, and yeah, it's a constant spiral of just unfairness and inequality in media and technology. So it impacts, like they said, it impacts education, and from education it impacts employment. So especially those that are disabled, because they don't have the access that able-bodied people do to education. They are already ostracised in the workplace and when it comes to getting employment. So if they can't get the education and the opportunities that able-bodied people get, then they won't be able to get the jobs and the employment that able-bodied people get, and they can do that just as well as able-bodied people can, because disabled people rule. I'm disabled and I rule. Yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you. Maybe one more. I think
Cool. I'll run.
Kia ora.
Oh, okay.
Kia ora koutou, called Di Daniels Aho, and I run a little charity called Digital Wings. I've been working in this digital inclusion and equity space for over 20 years, and it's really gutting to hear that all the issues that we were working on in the year 2000 when we started Computers in Homes in Cannons Creek School, that those things are still going. But what I'd like to add, echo and tautoko everything that has been said before, and all of those issues around education, employment, access, inclusion, and cultural, economic impacts. But all of those things that I hear, if you could all just click your minds from getting out of the city and see how much all of those issues are compounded in remote and rural areas where there's actually no internet access, or it's really flaky, or it's really, really expensive. And I moved to Taitokerau 3 years ago, and what I've found is that the rest of the country seems to think that Northland ends at Whangarei. And so I want to do a really big shout out for all the communities on Tairāwhiti, Eastern Bay of Plenty, all the remote, the West Coast areas, and Taitokerau, where, you know, if you can get 3G coverage sometimes on your phone, that's good, that's excellent. But there's a whole range of black spots, and even with One New Zealand, aka Vodafone, with their Starlink satellite, they say 100% coverage, but their map actually stops at Whangarei when they do their coverage map. So I'd just like to just raise that awareness that all of these really, really important and impactful and distressing and not okay issues that you're raising around culture and disability and economics, education, employment, those are compounded further in remote and rural areas where most of the discussion around rural is about farmers being able to enter their data. And they're not thinking about the shearers and the fruit pickers and the seasonal workers, and, you know, so just would like to open up your minds to that and get out of your city structure, where you can actually maybe access a library or something sometimes. And I know that's not ideal, it's not having it at home, but in the far north there isn't even a library. So in some places, so ka pai, thank you.
Kia ora. Oh, kia ora, yeah, and mihi to you for that, you know, to be able to put some of the whakapapa there of these, of what everybody else has raised as well. That was really nice, thank you. I just wanted to maybe throw it out to the homies. Does anyone have any kōrero they want to add to that, that in particular, the piece around the rural issues and that the challenges that our whānau out there face? In particular, because one of the questions, the top voted question here is around solutions to the digital equity divide for our rural communities. Yeah, does anyone have anything top of mind that we want to throw in there into that kōrero? If not, we might come back to it.
It actually, what's going on, we've just come from the Rural Connectivity Symposium and this, and all the challenges in which you spoke about. I saw some really good positive steps in movement, as opposed to just cyclic conversations that, as you know, have gone on for decades, actually. The education and awareness regarding the copper comms, the fact that the copper comms is going to be defunct and that's all going to be removed within the next 10 years, the fact that not everyone has fibre going into spaces, the fact that low orbit satellite can do one thing but can't do others, the sat to phone conversation, and the fact that with what's going on emergency management wise, or just emergency wise in general, has kind of sped up like the holy shit, we got to do something. And kia ora, baby, I hear that. No, my haramai, raise your voice. I think what's going on now is the whole kōrero about our critical infrastructure people need to be working with each other and stop getting their own backs about their own wallets and what's the commercial viability of us going into that partnership with that particular area. I think that has moved forward. That is a positive. So I noticed that certain companies, and I won't be not naming names on this stage, but that we're going, no, ours, that we own that, and we're going to take that those specific companies, we see a change because we see a change in the board leadership, which means we see a change in that direction and the understanding that it is not just about your back pocket, bro. To go into these partnerships with the other critical infrastructure companies will actually aid in our connectivity issues in the rural sector. So, and that is not just the rural sector, but in our vulnerable communities, just basically across the board. And that is heartening for some of us who've been fighting for this for a really long time, and the people that went before me and the people that went before them. So it's a great question, but a big question with lots and lots of variables in the answers. So kia ora, and I appreciate it, Mihi.
Yeah, I'll add on to that because, so I'll come from the perspective of on the ground. So when it was locked down, don't lock me up, you know, in Auckland, there were boundaries, but now me and my Toyota Vitz took past the boundaries. But we had to deliver out in Northland, and I think the hard reality truth, and I totally understand, is the people that are in the infrastructure area, they just don't listen. They always say economics, we need numbers to support this infrastructure. But it's like, can you open your eyes, you know? And, you know, you're right about the natural floods and stuff. I know it was terrible, but it's a blessing as well because it woke them up. Because when it happened, everyone got disconnected. And then they look at us and they're like, how did this happen? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Why did we not do a risk analysis on this? But we are always risk analysis every day. And the thing is changing the mindset. And from my view, from the on the ground, and because when we give devices, and we all know the truth here, you can give a device, but that's not enough. It's never enough. You know, you can't run your YouTube with no internet. It's more like the air tube at the moment, you know. So like, it's a whole package. But from seeing it is, I do have a heart for our rural families because no matter how many times we tell them, it takes something like a natural disaster for them to wake up. Then when they fix it, it's not enough. It's only fitting for. It's like we have a cup, and they fill the cup, and they only fill a teaspoon of the cup, you know. But we want the cup to overflow, and I think the thing that we're trying to, I know all of us, and also you should all advocate to really fight for them to change their minds. Yeah, it looks nice in front of a government report to have economics, but you've got to see past that. And I think it is. We need to have another panel discussion for that because it's so much to unfold. But I am happy that all of you are now, or if not, have more awareness of what's happening outside of our big cities. So, Almighty Pati for the sister, that was a beautiful question. Bless you.
I might just throw in another little 16 cents on that one as well, because there's another part I hear about political activism and what role that has to play in digital equity. And so I think like in that, in the rural community kōrero, so what I've seen in the health space has been this kind of quite slow coming around of understanding that, we saw it in the vaccine response that our communities can do that stuff for our communities better than anybody else, right? Aha ko te hapuri, whatever that community is, that we know best how to solve the things that we need to solve, and we all know that. But health services learned that through the vaccine response, and so the same thing is true for our rural communities, right? Like there's no point us going in there and going, okay, we've built this thing and it's going to improve the way you guys have access or the way you guys trust digital services or whatever. And I link back to the political activism question here because then in our, when we had the cyclone responses kicking off, I don't know if you guys saw any of that kind of debate in kōrero online where there were these Māori-led responses being talked about, right? And you had people jumping in there going, oh, what? So we're only going to be rescuing the Maoris from their houses, not us as well. But that's not what Māori-led means, right? Like, to your kōrero sis around the cup overfilling, that's how all of our communities think, right? Like, we're not trying to fix this thing here just for us. We're trying to fix it for everyone around us. We're trying to fix it for tomorrow, for our kids, their kids. And so I think that's a political kōrero because that's a mindset, of Māori-led things are only for Māori. Like, that's not what that means. And that actually prevented some of those cyclone responses working, right? Because there were those kōrero blocking them. And so that's where I think that political activism piece is so important, because we need to have the answers to those blockers when they come up, so that we can let our rural communities solve the things that they know how to solve, however we do that. Iho, I don't know if you want to, is there a link in there around the how we take the space that we need to in governance and in leadership and in...
Yeah. It's a big question. I do want to say something. When I was deployed up to Tamaki Makaurau, I walked into that. I was just going to say this is just between us, and then I realised it's been recorded. It's like all of this. It's just between us and the recording and all of that. World famous in Aotearoa. When I went up to Tamaki Makaurau, I was deployed into the ECC. And there were all these stories that were hitting me about what was going on in South Auckland. And I was like, does anyone actually have some intelligence here of what's actually going down on the ground? So I commandeered an emergency management vehicle and I went down to the community centre that a really good friend of mine was running. And I met with the leaders, the Pacifica leaders that were there and running that particular community centre. And I walked into that centre and it just blew my head out. It just blew my mind what our community was doing there, especially spending my teenage years in South Auckland and being real close to those communities. And I brought all of this back and I went straight back to the ECC, went back to the city. I said, this is what's going on, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I got quoted, but in section 33 of the... and I went, F your section. It doesn't make no sense. You got this thing set up. It's 300 metres down the road and all of your resources and all of that stuff is going to that space. And do you know how many people they were getting in that centre? 2 to 3 people a day. Someone yell out how many they were getting down in that centre in South Auckland. Over 1,000 people a day. And you're not going to pull the resources from here and put it over here? Yeah. This is leadership. This is a leadership situation. So yes, I broke the rules. Everyone knows that now. I've had my hands slapped, but I don't care, and I'll do it again and again and again and again. If it makes sense, and irrespective if it's written in the rules are there to be broken for the heart of our communities. If you see the why and you see the need, then yeah, make it make sense. Now there's some other stuff here that come. There's a lot of variables in this particular kōrero, but for that one, that was an easy decision for me to make, and I'll stand by it every day. And this is what we're doing in the governance space and in the leadership space. We're being able to sit around those tables and be bold enough to say the things that need to be said. And that's a big part of being in it. You can't just go in there, work your ass off and get around those board tables and then get assimilated, because that's what happens. We have to be real, and that means that we've got to be connected with what's really going on in our own backyards. And that's the biggest thing about leadership, no matter what, in any space, and especially in any deep equity space like digital equity.
Okay. Kia ora. So we did have a bunch of questions here that we were going to go through, obviously, and everyone's kind of prepared for them, and we've thought about that. But you guys are asking some mean pātai, so please keep asking them. I do want to just touch on this one here, and I know that I said I wasn't even going to talk, that I was just here to pass the mic around, but there's a mean question here around, is encouraging our people to learn how to use tech in itself colonisation? And I've got a couple of whakaaro about that, but I'm just going to throw it over to the panel first to see if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have whakaaro on that. So, and this is a very complicated question to answer. So it's not that there's a black and white answer. There's kind of multiple answers that you can look at from different angles. Within our space, if you think back to our tupuna, and the way that they developed the solutions that they developed, they had their own forms of technology that they accessed. And as the years went on, they had to adapt and use whatever they had in front of them. I think that the kōrero around using tech, learning how to use tech as a colonisation is really all about how you use it. So, for example, in our space when we're using 3D printing, when we're teaching rangatahi how to use 3D printing, what we're encouraging them to do is think about what they want to make first, be intentional with that, and use what they have access to. Now, if you think back to our tupuna, it's the same thing. When they decided, for example, we need to build waka that are going to take our people over the ocean, they had the goal, they decided what they were going to design, then they thought about what technologies and resources do we have access to make that. So, so in our space, it's critical that we don't just teach rangatahi how to use the tech, or even just give them access to it, but teach them how to form the right whakaaro first before they access the technology. I see, with the growing influence of social media can be used for many amazing things, but man, I see a lot of rangatahi that are they have no idea how dangerous that technology can be if they don't use it properly. And some of the stuff that they put out onto social media, some of the stuff that they're taking in, they're just kind of mindlessly doing it. And so we've met a few people in the digital equity space. Shout out to the whānau from Digital Discipline, because the mahi that they are doing in that space is critical. Teaching our rangatahi how to be mindful about how they use social media. So I think that's the key word. It's all about being mindful and intentional first before accessing the technology.
Kia ora.
Buzz, sorry. Me. Talk show, eh? Please, take this. Testing. Yeah, okay, so how do I answer this? Okay, the system and the industry is owned by colonizers, okay? You've got to remember that. The thinking is our own. It's always, the thing is, tūlo, Pālangis went and make the thinking that we've already thought about for many years. They come over and take our land, beep, beep, and then they go and use it to make money. So you've got to remember that. But you've got to remember the whole system of tech, the tech industry is run by a Pālangi man. Okay, the thinking, you've always had that thinking within use, and it's been with use. It's like what it's called, ancestral knowledge. That thinking in tech has always been in you. Now, a key thing I have to pinpoint here is, in the digital equity space, when we think of it, we always focus, and it always starts at home, don't get me wrong. It always starts from the Fale, our families, our inga, everything. But a lot of the things that we've noticed at Fibre Fale is we forget about our own that's actually in the system. We actually do have a few of our people in the system. Now, the thing that we have to learn, especially with that question, is yes, we will always support the beginning stage of our people in tech and always tell them, hey, you are wayfinders, you are navigators. But the thing is, we do forget about our own people who have already been colonized, not in that space in tech, but within their minds. So the work that we do is, that question is so good because we decolonize their mind in there. A big thing you notice is if you go in tech and let's say you see our brothers and sisters, a big thing that we've noticed is we like to be the only person in tech. Lea whaftai. No. You cannot be a silo. We have been built to work as a village, not to be a silo pipe somewhere in the lake, okay? No. You have to, and that's the thing is, the question's so right on, because while we're helping our people to know who they are, remember their roots, and know that you're coming into a space that isn't ready for us, we still need to fish out our own people to be like, hey, it's too much in the deep end, let's bring you to the lagoon and really feed you with the knowledge. And I think that's such a good question because the space is run by colonizers, but the thinking has always been in us from day dot. And I think that's something that it's good for us to know now, but especially those that work in tech. Hello, can you hear me? Come back. There we go. Whaftai.
Kia ora.
Also, totally tautoko what you've just said, but this is why we're here and doing what we're doing, because right now, right now and the last 30 years, last 50 years, it's been owned and created for Pālangi men, basically. And why we want to make sure that those thoughts, those whakaaro right from the beginning, the values and the morals goes into the building that tech comes from people that don't look like that, means that maybe, hopefully, in that utopian future, it's not all going to be made for and created by for white men. And I mean, you know, some of my favorite David Attenboroughs are white men, so it's not like a hate thing. It's just saying that there is room in this pond for all of us, and that we can't imagine that something like technology is without bias, because it's been baked in right from the beginning. And if we don't recognize that from the outside and then we start using it, then yes, we are colonizing ourselves again. So, yeah.
Kia ora. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add on to that whakaaro too around, and to some of your kōrero, Jess, about the, you know, our tūpuna had to adapt and had to figure out different tools and how to use the different things we had on hand, right, from different stones that we had when we arrived here to when, you know, steel chisels became a thing and using those for our whakaaro, all that stuff. We've adapted and used different technology since the beginning. And I think about, so that the shoebox Christmas kaupapa that, you know, that I look after, when I started that down here in Cannons Creek, like in 2014, I knew what I wanted to do, right? And it was just that, just wanted to give some awhi and some aroha to those, to these choice kids at this very choice school called Glenview Primary. But I was just doing that with the tools that I had on hand. And then over the years, what I realized was that to grow that, I needed to use different tools. I needed to learn how to use tech to do that same thing. And because all I was doing was expressing those same values, that my tūpuna had gifted to me. You know, the need to do something, to give something to the community that I received from, right? And so when I thought about how I might use different tools to do that, I mean, that's what grew that kaupapa in particular, from being able to give koha to 80 whānau and tamariki in the community so that they know that we're all part of that hapori, through to what it is now, which is, you know, by last year we'd done that for 74,000 whānau and tamariki through using tools, right? Through using tech, learning how to use tech. And then this year or next year we'll do that. We'll do that times 2, because we're looking at how we use other tools to do it. So if we're using those tools that are, you know, built by whoever, and ideally, definitely, like, let's build them ourselves, because that's how they'll work well for us. But we can figure out how to use the ones that are there now, just to express the stuff that's already in us and that we want to do, right? Like, that's all I'm using tech for, is to bring that, bring those values that I've inherited and hold and am obligated to express them wider. And that's the beauty of tech. It's a massive tool for scaling. We wouldn't have got here from Hawaii Nui on what we were using to go fishing out just offshore, right? We had to build different tools, use different tools. Yeah. Any other whakaaro on that one? Choice question. Can't wait. There's another one here. Do we want to crack into that top one?
So the question is, what is being done to help include those who are limited from the digital world? For example, older people, low income, low tech ability, low English, low vision, disabled, etc. So this question is definitely one that's very close to my heart. And before I share my whakaaro, I actually want to share an analogy. I always use this analogy when I'm kind of answering questions like this. If you think about building a fire, and if, can I get a raise of hands? Who's actually made a fire from scratch before? Who's built one? Oh, quite a few. Okay, cool. Even if you haven't made one yourself, you've probably seen videos or you've seen it in the movies where, you know, you'll have this person out in the wild who will get the small bits of twigs and things and they'll put it together. And if you're real old school, you'll get the stick and try to rub it together for friction. If you're a bit more modern like us, you might use a little lighter or something. But if you think about growing that fire, there are kind of various stages that a fire has to go through to grow. The very first stage is that kind of what they call the tinder stage, right? No, don't go thinking about the other tinder. So it's the stage where you have to be the most careful. It's a stage where you have to put the most dedicated effort and focus to make sure that you not only get that spark started, but you nurture the spark to grow strong enough that you can then start to add larger pieces of rako. And so that's where you'll go into like the kindling stage. In the kindling stage, you have a flame that can hold its own, but if you ignore it, it will die out very easily. And so you have to feed it with larger pieces of rako to build the fire up until you get to the log stage. At the log stage, the fire is not only strong enough to hold its own, but even if it was to go out, you've still got a window of time to resurrect the fire because it's built up enough heat. So if you take that analogy of a fire and liken it to enabling and empowering our people through digital technology, and this analogy can be adapted to many other scenarios, but in our space, the mahi that we particularly do in Vaka, we are at that kind of tinder kindling stage. So we are not trying to take rangatahi and get them to a point where they're creating the next rocket lab or the next Xero or something crazy like that. That's something that happens much later down the road. But the major problem that we face is that a lot of our people, they struggle with their own identity around becoming good with technology. I can't tell you how many times I hear the phrase, oh, man, honestly, I don't think I'll ever be good at this stuff. Or if they see a 3D printer because it's like, looks super techy and it's got like motors and belts and everything, they'll look at that and instantly disassociate themselves with it because they'll think, it's too hard, I'm not a tech person, I've never been good with that tech stuff. And so our mission at Vaka is to ignite the next wave of STEAM entrepreneurs. And we do that by focusing on those very first experiences that rangatahi or educators will have with the technology. We make sure that they're not being put in front of these programs that are extremely intimidating. If any of you have done 3D modeling and you've used professional CAD software or programs like Blender, the first time you open a program like that, it can be very overwhelming because there's hundreds of buttons with all these icons and all these technical terminologies that you're not familiar with. And only those who are really passionate spend the time to dive through all the YouTube videos trying to learn how to use it. Most of the rangatahi and educators won't do that. Even though they intuitively know, man, I could use this technology, I could do some really cool things with it, it's super exciting, they will discount themselves away from accessing that because they'll think, I could never get to that stage where I could use it. So what we do in our mahi is we focus on using programs that are designed for that very beginning stage. In the 3D modeling world, raise your hands if you've ever heard of Tinkercad or if you've used Tinkercad. Yeah, see how there's not a lot of hands going up? It's an incredible program. It's free. It works off a browser because it's cloud-based, which means you don't actually have to have a PC worth $5,000 or more to run it. You can run it off a Chromebook. And so when we expose these kids and these educators to programs like Tinkercad, all of a sudden, instead of opening a program that has 300 different buttons and icons, it's an extremely watered-down version, but it's enough to get them started. The next thing that we do is we make sure that their very first design is something that surprises them. When they make it, if we hear them say things like, far out, I honestly didn't think I could do something like this, then we've done our job. And that's really just that beginning stage. If they get confident enough to start making more designs, then all of a sudden, over time, the identity they had around, I'm not good with tech, starts to fade away. It's not a light switch thing where it just like changes overnight. Well, for some it might be. For most, it takes a number of these experiences for them to get to a stage where they're like, man, honestly, I think I want to do this. I think I want to do this as a business, or I think I want to get into like 3D modeling. And they may not, in our mahi, that may not mean that they go and get into 3D printing as a career, but they may end up getting into VFX and film. They may end up getting into engineering. They may end up getting into starting their own business selling products like decor products. They may get into the culinary industry, but designing and inventing their own things to serve people in that industry. We're not really concerned with where they are 10, 15 years from now. There are organizations who spend time in that space. We're concerned with the first few days, the first few weeks, the first few experiences. So I think what needs to be done is we need more. Like, there's not enough of us in the space at that early stage who are getting these kids and these educators exposed to this stuff. And there is definitely not enough funding for even those of us who are here to keep that thriving. So for those who may be from funding organizations or government or corporates who love sponsoring this kind of stuff, I would definitely encourage you to really seriously think about who you would like to back with that funding. and contact them directly. Don't put us through this like 16-week process where we have to fill out like 20 different forms and provide all this extra documentation, because what ends up happening is that the work that's really most important gets stifled because we're inundated with all of this bureaucracy and all of this paperwork that has to be done to tick the boxes, when what's most important is the actual mahi itself. Yeah.
Kia ora.
Can I just add one little thing? So one of the things that I worked with Ete actually a little while ago is this international organisation called code.org. They do this really cool thing called Hour of Code, and it's to encourage young kids to think about coding, just like dragging little blocks and like playing with Lego. But we got funding to get one thing translated Eteroa Māori, and then just recently we launched one in Gagana, Samoa. And it was so cool to take that out to kids, to young tamariki who were like, oh, I can program a computer in the language that I speak in at home. And that meant that they could see themselves in that tech, even if it's just playing around with like Minecraft characters or the oceans activity. It's just, to be able to see yourself in it's that first kindling step. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you mentioned elders. So there are organisations that take care of our elders, such as 2020 Trust, DigiFale, but it's important that you see the whole journey of what it's like for our people. So from my experience, because I do this a lot with the churches, is and I encourage you as well, because, you know, as Brother said, there's not many of us, but a takeaway for you is you can teach the same thing you teach to you know, our kids or our teenagers, to our parents. There are certain things, emails, cell phones, who not to like or like on Facebook, who to block or to not block on Facebook. Don't block the whaiwhiao, don't block the pastor. Let's just keep it neutral. But it's, you know, these are small things that you can teach. But my only advice really is be patient. You know, I always say this at church, Ese gave me back then, it's it right now. So times have changed, be gentle. Be easy, you know, they never even got opportunities like us. So my encouragement is, yes, you've seen the whole journey of tech, and there is a lot of hands that need to be needed to solve this problem. So if you even do what I do, I went to a retirement home because my church goes to go and sing in front of them. I can't sing. So I just teach you how to do the emails. So you can do it too. So I think there are orgs like this, but I think it's something that you can take away as well, is love on them too. They've built a life for us, so we should honour them by giving this gift that they can feel included in as well. Please.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I mean, there's another unsurprisingly awesome partai here, and I'm just going to throw it out to the panel to see if you've got any whakaaro on it. So what types of opportunities are there for rangatahi Māori to be leading or to be kaitiaki over such a hāti kaupapa as digital equity?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So, so as I mentioned before, our mission is to not just do the STEAM stuff and teach them the technology, but teach them how to actually use it to make money. I believe that if we had an education system that put more emphasis and priority on entrepreneurship and innovation, when pandemics like COVID were to happen, you would not see as much of the negative economic things that took place, because you would have a generation of innovators who know how to adapt and have this thought around, okay, well, if it's not going to work, I can do something different. I can solve a different problem for a different group of people. We get real frustrated in the education system, because when we go to schools, and I'll give you some real examples here, we've had teachers say, man, we've been wanting to do 3D printing for ages, but because it's not core curriculum, it's not a priority for us. Even though, if you've ever seen the potential of what 3D printing can do in education, I don't understand why it's not core curriculum. It should be core curriculum. It's adaptable to virtually every single industry out there in the world, and yet we're not treating it that way. And so there are some schools like Māori High, shout out to Māori High, some schools like them who have actually decided, you know what, stuff the system. Not saying they don't follow the system, but they tend to kind of find ways around it and to just do things that they've been wanting to do. They've got this incredible makerspace. that I know a lot of schools have been envious of because they see what the kids are doing in this makerspace, and other schools are like, man, we should have a makerspace. But, well, it's not a priority because it's not really something that ties into core curriculum. So we're not going to put the funding necessary to get that started. Maybe if we're lucky, we might go out and get some funding for that maybe down the line, but it's not a priority. That mindset has to change. It has to change at the highest levels of government. It's got to change at the school level, and it's got to change in the private sector level. So with our mahi, one thing that we've kind of vowed to do is we've just started taking on like corporate print jobs, where corporates will approach us and they'll say, hey, we have an event coming up, we want you to make X number of these things like awards or gifts, and we can make some really beautiful things with 3D printing. But what we've decided to do is to actually take on those corporate print jobs, bring rangatahi in, do the job with them, and split the profits 50-50.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, imagine, I get a bit emotional about this because I've seen the economic hardship that some of our whānau go through. Imagine a 14-year-old, 13-year-old who's able to make, in 1 year of learning how to use 3D printing, could make enough that the whānau does not require them to go out and get an extra job to help contribute to the home. Imagine a 13, 14-year-old, or whatever age, making enough money that they don't have to worry about if they can go to university or not, because they can pay their own bills. That's the future that we see, which is why we're doing the mahi that we do.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, bro.
Can I add on? So I'm going to speak from Pacifica view. What opportunities? Heaps of opportunities. Oh my gosh, bucket loads. So the opportunities that are available for, especially at Fibre Fale, is we have free events where our young people can come in and actually talk to people in tech that look and sound and also understand who we are. The reason why we do this is, I'll be very frank with you, the tech industry is not culturally safe for our people. How dare you tell us, oh, come, we want more of our Māori and Pacifica people to work here. Shush your mouth, you know? Shush your mouth. You know why? They go out around the rooms and fill up they name all the meeting rooms after Māori places, but yet they still haven't set up a tiriti strategy for their company. How dare you? You know? Now, from a Pacifica view, we must always honour, because this is not our land. This is mana whenua's land. So wherever Māori go, we support and tautoko. But as Pacifica, oh my goodness, we have to always stand firm. A key thing that I say too, and the reason why we paint the picture of the whole journey of Pacifica and Tech is, yes, we will nurture you, we will educate you in your starting, but the place that we're going to send you is not ready for you. It is not ready for you. So that's why in Fibre Fale we take care of our people that are in that space. One, because we have to decolonize the mind, and two, they are the ancestors for the next generation that comes in. So the opportunities that we give is, yes, we'll educate you, but we're going to give you a real view of what this industry is. Because as Pacifica, we have servant leadership. We serve with our hearts. We serve because that's our alofa to you. But when we serve in this area, we get used, abused. We don't even get paid properly. They want us to, for example, I get paid to be a software engineer, but no one pays me for Samoan Language Week. No one pays for that. So that's why the opportunities are endless, but a big opportunity we give is the real truth of what happens in these places. Yes, listen to all of us and how we want you to be leaders, but we've got to be honest, we've got to pay our bills. And that's why when you come into these spaces, do not be indulged in the, yes, you can get free drinks. Oh, that's great. The tea is Earl Grey. Yes. But you know what? We want you to not drink from the Kool-Aid, but drink from the cover. Drink from the cover cup. Let the cover take you to a place that's way better than what they can give you. Not even a price can do it. And I hope and pray that it's not even just for Pacifica, it's for all of us. I hope and pray that you become leaders, not servers. You're not there to serve them, they're meant to serve you. Because everywhere you go should always be a red carpet for you. So that's my TikTok for today. Tailava, yes.
Oh, the last one? Okay, kapai. Well, kia ora sis, that was, yeah, man. You're like an Instagram quote generator, right? Another mean part, will AI deepen inequity? Who wants to ruku into that one first?
I'll kick us off. I truly think that AI right now, today, all of the apps that are supposedly free, that's where we were 15 years ago with more of the other stuff that we're talking about that apparently, huge percentages of Aotearoa still can't access. But this inequity that's been baked in, it's, and it's exactly what whoever was here this morning, what Masa said, it's not AI that's taking over your job, it's the person that knows how to use AI. And so what AI is doing now is it's causing that rift to be even bigger, because not only now do we have to be able to afford a device, an internet connection, and know how to use it, and be able to use it to the point where we can make things with it, we now have to be able to use it to the point where we can make things with it. It's yeah.
Kia ora.
Yeah, I think AI it's just another tool, and I know that this is a very controversial topic. You've got people on both extremes of the conversation here, so I'm going to be very careful with how I say what my whakaaro is on it. In our company, we embrace AI, and it's not something that we run away from, because it's just another tool. And I think, like the whakaaro I shared on social media before, if our younger generations do not understand how to be responsible with it, then they will be sucked in by those who are controlling the AI interfaces that are developing these programs. And once again, I go back to social media. If you look at the social engineering that goes behind social media platforms, like these companies will hire psychologists who are experts in addiction to consult these tech engineers on how to build their platforms to be more addictive. And a lot of our rangatahi don't realize that they're being sucked into these things because it's just basic psychology.
Yep.
We have to teach our kids how to be more aware of these tools and what they can do, and help them understand where is the line, what is responsible and what is irresponsible when it comes to using AI. I've seen this in schools already where some kids are trying to use AI to do the work for them. But if you ask the question, why are they even doing that? The answer is quite clear, because they don't have an ambition of what they really want to do. So they're just using it to tick all the boxes because school's telling them you have to get this. Here's what you've got to do for this assessment. You need to write an essay on all these different things. And it's not something the kid's interested in. So of course they're going to be like, oh, cool, I'll just get AI to do it for me. If you get them to think about something they are interested in developing and show them how to use AI to make the thing they're interested in developing, they will take more creative control over that thing that they're interested in, instead of just saying, I'll just get AI to do it for me. And AI will become one of the tools in the toolbox they have to make those things that they're actually interested in. Yeah, that's just my thought on it.
I'm just going to add on to the bit about social media. Like an interesting thing that I try to do every time I'm on, which isn't often, on social media, is remind myself that I'm scrolling through a thing that has spent literally billions of dollars trying to figure out how to make me stay scrolling through that thing and waste my time, and that it only can spend that money because it makes enough money off me doing that to spend billions of dollars on making me stay in the app instead of doing what I'm meant to be doing. So it's just, your whakaaro no iho, just a thing to remember when you're doing that. And yeah, on the AI stuff, and it's not specifically around the equity thing, but just to carry on from your kōrero, when I, some of the young mates that I work with, their schools are telling them to not use AI, and they're like, oh, I used it to this, I think I cheated a little bit. But like, if they're learning how to do something to go and do that thing out in the real world, and they're applying for a job, and the person who's applying for that same job has figured out how to use AI, so can do the thing that they have to do about 20 times quicker, they're not going to get the job. So our schools are setting our kids up to fail if they're not teaching them how to use AI, because it will make everything you do a whole lot quicker. And there's, the inequity stuff that comes from the biases of AI is a whole other wānanga, and I think unless anyone wants to dive into that side of it, maybe we stay focused on that digital divide piece, to the kōrero around we we have to be able to use the things that society is building products with to be able to work well in society, right?
But just to add to the colonization bit from before, this is a real example, right? So facial recognition technology is happening all around us at the moment. Very large supermarket chains here in Aotearoa claim to not be using it, but it's really obvious that they are. And just like, let's take a very specific example, Māori man with Matarau, right? There is not that many of those pictures in the training database. So 2 completely different Māori men with Matarau, one is going to be falsely accused, and it's going to come up as a false positive, right? But what is the flip side of that? Are we going to add these taonga designs into the training database? No, because that's even worse. And so it's just like, at some stage, some of this kind of stuff, it's it's just a lose-lose, I guess.
I'll just add, I think in the inequity for AI, I think I would agree to embrace it, but you'll actually see already, if you see our communities, we're already behind with tech. So if you add another AI, we're going to be even way behind too. So I feel like, one, we have to embrace it and understand its knowledge. But my goodness, I was in Samoa 2 weeks ago, but I met a translator, a Samoan translator, beautiful lady from Savaii. And they were like, I want to use AI to help me translate everything for the church documents. Now, here's the thing I'll tell you. Embrace AI, but don't give AI your ancestral knowledge. Because who owns the machines that create the AI machines? It's a Palangi man. So you're pretty much giving all that ancestral knowledge that you have, everything about how Samoa is, the nganganga, everything, you're putting it in there to make your job easy. But it's like, we've got to still remember, AI is data. It's just repeat, it's different types of data running around. And if you give them your data, and that's something, you're right, it's another talk, but that's something to keep in mind is embrace, educate our communities, but also be careful. Be very careful, because that's something that is passed down from generations. And I just want you to be careful and hold what's sacred to give. Yeah, it's easy to get the job done faster, but just let's think about the next generation and how they would feel. Because, they could scam my mum on Facebook using Samoa that was taken by AI. So you've got to keep in mind of all that stuff as well. So that's my kind of view of AI, especially from that Pasifika side. Malo.
Kia ora.
I think I don't like answering the AI questions, because automatically I zoom out to the big kaupapa that's around the whole thing, which is data sovereignty, and that is a much larger discussion. So for those of you who are not aware or of what's going on in the data sovereignty world, do a bit of Google it. Google, have a look around, and I would highly recommend that you go into either scholarly or whatever you're utilising in research, and have a look at the amazing research papers that are in this space on data sovereignty. And this is a big kōrero that is going on, especially for Māori and Pasifika. At the moment. There are a lot of things that are going on in formal mechanisms, the big policy stuff, all of that kind of stuff that we are getting right into at the moment. And this will not do over a 30-second answer on a panel. But this comes into that data sovereignty kaupapa. So I just wanted to drop those ukapu.
We've only got 11 minutes left, and I wonder if we should kind of try to wrap up on that top question there, which is about, but weave in the other kōrero that we talked about around what do we see as the future? What does the future look like where we don't even need to have a panel like this, right? We'll be talking about digital equity, because it's not even a thing. It's just, what do you mean? That's just how things work. So I want us to think about that, and then also try to answer that pātai around one thing that we could say to everyone in the room for them to be better digital equality advocates, as well as what we think that future might look like.
I'll start off. So I'll speak from kind of our side of the space, because we deal with 3D printing and making objects.
So 2 minutes.
One of the best ways to start to get into at least our space is to think about things that you want to make. Once again, it's all about the intention and the design or the project you have in mind that then drives your desire to learn how to make it. If any of you are makers or creators in this room, and when I say that, like, technically everybody's a maker or creator in some way, right? But if any of you have thought of yourselves as, I am definitely someone who likes to make and create things, you already know what I'm talking about. What drove you to learn the last technical skill that you learned? It wasn't because you were wanting to learn the skill so you could have it under your belt. You had some particular project in mind and you were like, you know what, there's YouTube, I'm just going to jump on and learn how to make this thing that I want to make. I got into woodworking and I learned a bunch of skills in woodworking because I wanted to build particular types of furniture for my workshop. So if you want to become more of an advocate for digital equity, in the great words of the company Nike, just do it.
Kia ora.
Pick a project, pick something you're really creatively thinking, like, I want to make that, I don't know if I can, but I'll be keen to learn how. Jump on the internet, go to YouTube University and learn. That's where I got most of my learning from, yeah.
Just look around whatever room you're in and see who's missing. And then to tautoko Ete's thoughts earlier, like, not just see who's missing, if they're there, are they allowed to talk? And is the room really toxic for them? And what can you do? Everyone here can be an ally, even if you're in some kind of targeted minority community. And it's just, at some stage, you can be that person.
Kia ora.
Yeah, my thing is, don't be a ai-u. Don't be a so say it with me. I. Oh, let's add some mana in this. I. Ooh. When I say don't be, you say ai-u. Don't be.
Ai-u.
Don't be.
Ai-u.
Now, for those that don't know what you just said, ai-u means it means you don't like to share. You don't like to share. You just like to take the food, hide at the back of the room, and keep it to yourself. Now, what I mean by don't be ai-u is everything that we just said here. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be an ai-u, because the more you be ai-u, we're still going to be staying here we'll have another panel in another 5 years. And the reason why is, if you know the knowledge, if you can access everything on the internet, go and teach your others. If you don't like who you're teaching, get someone else to teach it for them. But really, the thing is, we move as a village. We move because if one person is behind, we go back and tie their shoelaces and we run the race together. So always remember that. Don't be an ai-u. A key thing is when you share with love, because that will continue to flow down to the next generation as well. So that's my key for today. Don't be a ai-u. Yes.
Kia ora.
Yes. Love it. Your primary PO for digital equity is connectivity, so connection, how you're connected, the device that you're using, the digital skills that you have, and if it's customized to the communities and the family that you're in, right? That's our primary PO. And that is all underpinned on a foundation of trust. And trust is the biggest part of this whole kaupapa. For me, it will always start in our own backyards. Everything starts in your own backyards. If I'm up here talking crap and I'm not doing it in my own backyard, then I shouldn't be here. So please, I look at what I'm doing with Mum and Dad. I taught Mum the other day how to look at her blood test results. Okay, Mum's almost 80. This is important for her because she just lost her licence. I look at my nieces and my nephews and all the kids that come around home and all of this, and where some of them at and where others are at. It starts in our own backyard. If you put all your hands up for the most of the questions that the sis here asked right at the beginning. So then you fellas are part of the solve. So go into your own backyard, go and see where your mum and dad are at, go and see where your nana and your papa are at, go and see where the people are in your communities and where they're at, and offer to give them assistance and be part of the collective solve, as the sis just said. That this is all of us doing our stuff. Our goal here is not to tell you what to do, is just to share our perspectives, part of the story, and to ambassador for a real world problem. When I think about our future and I think about what's coming up, If we do not get on top of this foundational stuff, we will, the equity gap will continue to increase. Our leaders will not be talking about this, which means they will continue to either barrier, you know, us moving forward and getting shit done. Excuse my language, my reo. So we must talk about this, and we must start in our own backyard. And then if you can go out and have the kōrero in your schools, those of you who've come from youth councils today, I talked to a lot of you during the break, you fellas need to bring this back to your spaces. And then the other side of it is we talk about our rangatahi and we also talk about our kaumātua. I want to also think and do a heads up for those in between. Where are they at? Where are our trades at? Who's on the shovels and who needs to be on the next bit of technology? And where is the digital gap and equity gap for those people? And this is why I spend a lot of time in infrastructure, especially for our tradies, you know, doing some upskilling for tech and stuff for them. So this gap exists right across. It's in all sectors. And if we do not do anything about it, it'll be a situation. But once again, we don't come from a deficit narrative. We come from the other side. We come from opportunity, exploration and discovery. Let's go there and let's get us there together. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I might just quickly, because we've got 4 minutes, sneak in a couple of little whakaaro as well. Yeah, I just want to just carry on from your kōrero, te tuahine. I think that it's easy to, I guess, sit at well, maybe it's easy to sit and listen to a wānanga like this and think, you know, all that needs to happen is for our pūkenga like these guys, guys and girls who know the stuff to share more, right? But also we need to acknowledge that a lot of our knowledge holders don't know that they are in that position to share. So when you hear that kōrero about being a good ancestor and being a good descendant, I think part of being a good descendant means how am I going to fulfill that obligation to carry on and to understand those taonga tuku iho and those things that are being passed down to me, and that might actually mean going out and asking, hey, like, is there somebody around me who knows how to do this stuff that I could tap into and ask, and know that they might not think they do know that, you know, so to kind of carry on your kōrero too, sis, around the doing that love, do that asking with love too. Go in and you might have to remind some of us old folk that actually we know some stuff worth sharing sometimes. We're not always that good at knowing that we have stuff worth sharing. But if you see somebody doing something that you think you could do as well, ask them if they're willing to share that. Because, you know, 99.100% of the time, they will probably be happy to share that with you. All of the stuff that I've ever learned, I think that is worth, that's gotten me to a point where I'm loving my life, because that's kind of the thing that's my superpower, I get to love my life, has been because I've known people who knew how to do a thing that I ended up enjoying, and I asked them how to do it. Yeah, so I think that's probably but to link that back into the equity kōrero, if we're not doing that, then we're not taking part, eh? There's kōrero like this around equity as a whole, you know, that zoomed out kaupapa, but that's the after effect. You know, this only has to happen because we're not in there enough for all of the reasons that we already know about. But equity as a kaupapa is something that we address smaller kaupapa by smaller kaupapa. You know, by getting involved in that thing that you see going on in your community or in your workplace or in your school or wherever. And actually you might just have to say, I'm going to be involved in this. But again, if you need help to do that, then find that person who you think might help you have that kōrero, and then get in there and say, I'm going to be involved in this. Because otherwise, there won't be anyone like you in the room, often. Yeah.
Can I just add I would just want to add to that, because it's such important kaupapa and whakaaro that you threw out there, bro. We are building an ecosystem together, we really are. And you're absolutely right, every bit counts. It's every little bit that amounts. And sometimes we don't know how many people are planting seeds and planting those trees. This is why we need to kōrero. This is why we need to come together and do the hui. Everyone gets, oh, too much hui and not enough dui. Bro, you need to have the dui so that we know all the seeds that are being planted and who's cultivating the mara, who's cultivating the garden and who's out there doing the thing. So you've got a hui and you have to do that whakawhanangatanga time so I know that, oh, that person's doing that thing, I'm doing that thing. Oh, how about you do this, sis, and I'll give you 50 cents for this. 50 cents. Gen X.
Get you a lolly mixture.
Gen X.
No, it won't.
20-cent coin in the Street Fighter machine at the fish and chip store, bro. Wow, when I hooked it up with the 50 cents. But it is about building and cultivating ecosystems. That's really what we're all doing here. And we are an ambassador to that and an ambassador to our perspectives and being part of those ecosystems. As part players and part components in a much bigger picture and a tapestry that we're all helping to weave together.
Kia ora. I mean, we're over time, so that'll be us. I just wanted to, mihi atu kia koutou i ngā kai whakarongo, i ngā kai pātai. For the awesome kōrero, awesome questions. Most of what we've talked about today has just been led by your pātai, so any goodness, any hua that's come out of this has been because of the pātai that you guys asked. And mihi again to the crew, Guy, awesome setup, and of course to the homies for sharing the mātauranga. I'll just quickly close us off with a little karakia, and then we'll carry on. Unuhia rā ko te pūtake o ngā kōrero o te wānanga. Unuhia rā ko te hautapu o ngā āraki. I kau whatatia ko tāne te waiora, ki runga ki tēnei taura, ki runga ki tēnei tauira. Kia koe te matapuninga, mai angi te matapu iho, whano, ahara mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.